of mine and my wife's vision boards there in the background. I'm working from home today because we are moving. So every spare minute I've got, we're packing up and putting stuff in storage and donating to Goodwill. So yeah, we often work with entrepreneurs who, you know, I would say at a kind of a larger scale are purpose-driven, mission-focused, heart-centered entrepreneurs that are really up to something, that care about making a difference, and yet feel frustrated because they feel like when it comes time to express what it is they're really about and what it is they really do, they never feel like they talk about what they do in a way that's as powerful as what they actually do. Anyone relate to that? Anyone ever feel frustrated? Like, if I could just talk about what we actually do in a way that's as powerful as what we actually do, but there's this gap that exists. And the reality is if we as entrepreneurs aren't able to articulate and communicate what we do in a way that's as powerful as what we actually do, then the people will never know what we're actually capable of. And what's interesting is so many of us, one of the things I found is, now there's so many different areas that we've helped entrepreneurs with. Once we help them craft the story and the message, then we can teach them how to speak using their story and their message. So whether that's raising capital or that's presenting from a stage and making an offer from a stage, whatever it is, we have a framework that we teach how to present in a way that's really powerful. And then we also have our own sales training, which is a story-based approach to selling, because we believe there's a way to sell and enroll that's story-based, devoid of tactics, and actually feels good. And, you know, what's interesting is this little business we've created, the Campfire Effect. You know, the past few years, we've sold millions of dollars of coaching and consulting with never running one ad, never emailing a list, never having a podcast, no marketing, just by going out and telling our story. It's me and a part-time assistant and a part-time coach. And we practice everything we teach. We really paid the price to know our story, know exactly who our market is, and we know how to communicate, articulate. And then when it comes time, we know how to enroll. And what's interesting is we make it way more difficult than it needs to be. So as entrepreneurs and organizations, we're usually actually not talking about what the people we want to serve are interested in. We're usually talking about what we're interested in. And if you think about it, do you guys think that most people wake up in the morning and their head comes off the pillow? Do you think they're already over capacity from a mental, like, information standpoint? Or do you think most people are waking up in the morning being like, you know what, I really hope I run into an insurance salesperson today and they try to pitch me. You know what, I just would love to run into a software company and ask them, you know, if they ask me for capital or another new thing to think about. No, like, the reality is, in the world we live in today, people wake up at overcapacity, already overwhelmed with information, which means there's no more room left in this thing to hear your message or to read anything that you have. So when you think about it, so when I speak on stage, and if the stage organizer will allow me to do it, not all of them give me the permission, I'll ask for 2 full glasses of water. And then I open my talk and I just sit there and I take 1 glass of water and I just start pouring the other one into it. And of course, water's just spilling out over the top because it's already full. And I just let it go on and I do it slowly, slowly, slowly. And people keep watching like, what is this guy doing? And I say, that's your marketing message to the majority of the people that you're trying to dump into. They're already at overcapacity and it's just spilling over the top and it's falling all over the ground. And you're just wasting money on marketing and branding and advertising. Because people don't have any more room to take in a new idea. So what if they didn't have to take in a new idea with our message? What if our story and our message actually entered the brain at a story or a conversation they were already having around what they're struggling with? They've already dedicated mental real estate to what they're struggling with. What if our story and our message just slipped right into that? So if our story and our message isn't speaking to the pain, struggle, or challenge that's already going on in their minds, there's a real strong likelihood they're never going to hear anything you say, no matter how great it sounds to you. And so one of the things that just, there's so many things I could talk about, but to talk about something that you could actually use in your very next conversation with someone is, if you speak to the pain, struggle, and challenge that the people you want to serve are already facing, then that means you're entering a conversation that they've already dedicated real estate in their mind to. They don't have to take in a new idea. Does that make sense? They've already given space in their mind for that. They're thinking about it. But what's interesting is we usually don't speak to that. We usually speak to the thing that we're doing. Now, I know you guys weren't like, you know, this is a casual like midday connect, but John and Garrett, can I pick on you guys for a minute? It was perfect that you guys went, and you guys have no context of what I'm going to say. So you would have said whatever you're going to say. But what's interesting, and I don't even know Garrett or John, if anyone on this call is even, you know, someone that could be your client, right? But I do know that every time we open our mouths, it creates something. Like every time we speak, it creates. It's not possible to speak and not have it create something. And so I think about like every time I have an opportunity to be in front of someone, like, do I speak in a way that has them see a possibility of how they could work with me or support me or introduce me to someone, right? And so John and Garrett, I just took some notes while you guys were talking. And so John, the sense I got from what you do is you do really cool, innovative stuff that does something with algorithmic biases. And from Garrett, I got that you guys support small businesses to get the resources they need. The challenge for me is I have no idea how I would actually support either one of you in that. And I would love to support you in it. Like, I would love to have you use language that actually enrolls me into a possibility of like, oh, I actually know someone I could connect John with. Or I actually know a small business that would be great for Garrett's network. So Garrett, I'm going to use you first, if you don't mind. What are these small businesses struggling with? And is there a certain type of small business that you serve?
Well, it's right now we're a larger consulting firm, and we're building a platform that serves smaller businesses, maybe like sub 5 million in revenues.
Okay.
So founders and their executive teams, and really trying to help them think outside the box by getting outside of the box through unique forums where you can communicate with each other and learn about topics that are relevant to your situation.
Okay.
And then connecting you with mentors that can help you solve problems maybe more one-on-one and intimate way that you're trying to deal with.
Okay, so what are their problems, though, Garrett? So these sub 5 million founders and their executive teams, what is it that they like, and when I say their problems, it literally is the thing that founder wakes up 2 a.m. thinking about and goes to bed at night thinking about. And I know that sounds cliche, but it really is. It's like, what would they say their problem is, their frustration, their challenge?
It depends. There's a few. Getting market traction is definitely one of them, for particularly the smaller ones. A little, as companies progress, they need to start documenting process and finding all of this and getting that, how to measure the results of their business, how to develop financial procedures and so on, how to raise money. A lot of these are kind of issues that they face, and perhaps underpinning all of them is one person alone can't do it all. So how do I find the right people and ideas to include on my team so that I can actually execute on all those challenges that I have?
Okay. Now, is there a particular industry that you guys, I mean, it could be any small business sub 5 million, but is there ones in particular you would really love to have early on?
No, I'm actually trying to create a very diverse crowd.
Okay.
So we work across a lot of different industries, and I'm hoping that if you're a small SaaS company and you're trying to figure out your revenue strategies, I'm hoping that you can get inspiration by talking to a B2B real estate developer, as an example, like really getting you to think outside the box and finding ideas in uncommon places.
Okay. Now, I heard you say we match them up with mentoring. Is there any aspect of these sub $5 million companies feeling like a little bit alone? Like I'm this founder, I have a company under 5 million, and I don't really have a lot of people that like I can get mentorship and leadership from. Like I feel like I'm kind of figuring this out on my own, regardless what my issue is.
Most.
Okay. So you just said something really profound there. We just highlighted something that most of them struggle with, regardless of their industry. So as an example, Garrett, if I was introducing your company or if I was introducing you, I would say Garrett runs a really large consulting firm that's now starting an opportunity for small businesses to get involved. And what they do is they often work with sub 5 million small business owners from all different kinds of industries. And the commonality amongst all these small business owners that run these sub $5 million businesses, they feel like they're on an island trying to figure it all out alone with just them and their executive team. They don't have the resources they need to get funding. They don't have the resources they need to figure out how to go to market strategies. And they're not quite big enough to like really have a board of advisors. They're not quite big enough to have like, the team of, the trusted professionals they really want. And so we've created a situation for them where they can actually get one-on-one mentoring and group so they don't feel like they're alone. Not saying that that's the perfect way to do it, but in that, I would actually be like if I heard that, Garrett, I'd be like, okay, I know some sub $5 million businesses who might actually be struggling with that, to feel like, you know what I mean? Like and if I'm you and I speak to that, like I'm so much more likely to raise my hand as a sub $5 million business owner because you just described my situation in detail. And I'm like, whoa, that's me, right? That's the power of like that kind of like language. But what's interesting is I usually, even my own, I have to do the work to do this because I don't wake up thinking about what my ideal client thinks about. I wake up thinking about what I think about. I mean, that sounds so obvious, but we often don't translate it to street level language, right? For the people that we really feel most
Yeah.
called to serve. And so it's just this interesting thing that there's this wall of context that divides all of us. So Garrett runs a large consulting firm. I run the Campfire Effect. Well, in between Garrett and I is a wall of context. So I have two choices in a conversation with Garrett. I either stay on my side of the wall and use language and messaging that's familiar to me, and hopefully he'll come do the work to crawl over and get on my side and listen to me, which he probably won't because he's got other things to do. Or I can just leave my side of the wall, come over and get on Garrett's side of the wall and really like use language that he would use if he was describing it. The fastest way to create relevance and relatability is to speak to the pain, struggle, or challenge that the people you feel most called to serve are struggling with right now. That's why whenever we're teaching you how to present, whether it's to raise capital, whether it's to do a webinar, whether it's to sell from stage, I don't care what it is. If you're presenting to a group of people, there's a reason why within the first 30 seconds, we have you get into a story of pain, struggle, or challenge of one of your clients or customers that you've already successfully worked with. You get into it immediately. And you know what a lot of speakers do? And that just is just a tip for speaking. A lot of speakers get up and they're like, oh, Taylor, thank you for the introduction. I want to thank you guys for being here. I want to thank God for creating this earth. I want to thank my parents for having me 38 years ago. I want to thank my wife for supporting me and being here today. I want to thank you. It's just like, shut up. Like, no one cares about any of that. Like, and we have such a bad habit of doing it in speaking. Like, all of that is for you. You're saying that for you, not them. You have to remember there's an audience out there that came to listen to you. You're there to serve them. So it's like you might say thank you to Taylor and that's it. And then you're into it. It's like, hey, I want to tell you a story about a client. Now you might share what we call your big idea of impact. That might take you 10 seconds. And then you're into, yeah, so we have the opportunity to work with companies who struggle with, right? Paint that and say, you know, that reminds me of a client. And now I'm into a story immediately of relatability. And if I tell that story of pain, struggle, or challenge, there's a likelihood that there's people sitting in that audience that have that pain, struggle, or challenge. And they're sitting there being like, how did she know? Like, that's me, right? And they're internally raising their hand. Well, you have them for the rest of your presentation because you just spoke to something they're struggling with. And then it gives you this opportunity later to talk about how you solve it. But people aren't interested in what we do and how we solve their problems if they don't think that we know what their problem is. People are not interested in what we do and how we can solve their problems if they don't believe we know what their problem is. It's like, you don't know me. You don't see me. Like, why are you pitching to me? Why are you telling me what you can do for me and how you solve my problems? You don't even know that's me. But if people believe that you know their problem, they feel seen by you. And that's what we call enrolling language. I want to use language that enrolls people into a possibility that I could help them. So Taylor, that's a great question. How do we identify the right pain, struggle, or challenge? That's why I asked,
Garrett?
Who was I just? Garrett, sorry. I was like, so that's why I asked Garrett, who are you looking for? Now, Garrett, my recommendation for what it's worth, you know, you know way more about your situation and the network you're looking to build, but in my experience, Garrett, you will get to that diversified group of that diversified network faster by picking a market and going after it and getting it, and then picking another market and going after it and getting it. And then after 2 or 3 markets widening, because in my experience, it's kind of hard to build messaging that's applicable. Now, if you can find some commonalities amongst all those challenges and industries, you can try it that way and maybe attract them regardless. But one of the first, so there's two, regardless of when someone comes to work with us, Taylor, regardless of what, if it's to help them with their speaking, raising capital, or selling, there's a reason why the first 2 things we do is we help them figure out their message and then we help them specify their market. Because I don't know what the specific pain, struggle, or challenge is unless I know exactly who I'm serving. Any of you guys ever felt like maybe we're trying to chase too many people in too many markets with our businesses? Right? If I was to ask you, like, who's your dream client, customer, patient? Like, absolute ideal. I've found that most entrepreneurs actually struggle with that question. For most of us, it's like, who's your dream customer, client, patient? Well, yeah, whoever has money can pay me, right? Like that's, and so that's a pretty tough place to start because it's like, I just don't know how. So, but here's what's confusing is sometimes we let our market create our message instead of allowing our message to create our market. So what we really encourage our clients to do is like, put your market off to the side. Let's not think about who we're going to serve. and let's think about what we feel most called to say. What's our authentic message, and what's the thing we feel most called to share? And if through that clarity, that should lead us to our market. If this is what I really feel called to talk about, then there's a group of people that would be aligned with hearing this. So it's kind of hard, Taylor, I think, to know the pain, struggle, or challenge without knowing who our absolute dream market is. Does that make sense? Because if you just say, hey, Chris, how do we pick the right pain, struggle, or challenge? I would always answer with, well, who are we serving? Who's it for? Right? And so, yeah, most of us, and I've been guilty of this. I used to go out and look for the market opportunity and look for the marketing and the messaging. And then, right? Or sorry, I would start first with my market, and then I would back into the message to serve them. The risk in that is I might be picking a market that I actually don't even really want to serve, that I'm not even really feel called or aligned with. I just pick it because it's a good opportunity and I think I can make a lot of money. And then I back into an inauthentic message that I'm going to get tired of sharing. But if I can actually have the faith to say, like, there's always going to be people to serve. There's always going to be customers and clients to have. So I'm not even going to worry about who my market is right now. I'm going to focus on what I feel called to say. And then through that clarity, I'm going to look at the market that I feel is most matched up with that message. There's a likelihood that I'll pick a market that I really love serving and that I really want to serve. And I feel excited to get out of bed every day to go serve those people because I really am aligned with them. And then when I get to know that market, it's like, I want to know intimately, what do they struggle with? What are their challenges? What are their pain points? Like it sounds so cliche, but like whatever I guess cliches work because they're usually true, but that's why they're cliches. But like the cliche of like what keeps them awake at night, like literally whatever that CEO falls asleep stressing about and wakes up stressing about is what I want my messaging to say word for word. And most people, we don't do that. Like we're not even close. Like what's on our website and the messaging we use is so far away from what he or she CEO falls asleep thinking about and wakes up thinking about. We just make it weird. But if Hallie and I, is it Hallie Robbins? If Hallie and I met just casually and we were having a conversation, we would have a totally different conversation than if we then put us in a business context. More than likely our weird level would go up like 80% each and we'd talk like robots. And the only thing that's changed is we've been put in a business context. And if we can just stop doing that, and if we could actually talk on our website and in our marketing and our messaging like we do, like in real conversations with real people, like we have an opportunity to actually be heard and be relevant and not just cast off like, oh, just another, more noise, like the water getting poured into the top and just spilling out over the top. So people do want to know what we do. People do want to know how we can help them, but only if they feel like we know what they struggle with. We have to kind of, I think, earn the right. You can do that in a talk though. Before they've even told you what they struggle with, by you opening with that story of pain, struggle, or challenge, they feel seen by that story. And they're like, wow, that's kind of like my situation. That sounds a lot like me. And if there's a bunch of people in the audience who don't align with that or don't relate to that story, that's okay too. You're not trying to serve everyone. That's the other thing that I think sometimes is interesting is I'll have clients sometimes that are like, well, Chris, I don't want to be that specific on my messaging because I want to appeal to more people. And I'm like, okay, based on your business model and what you need to do to like run a really profitable business, how many clients do you need? And they're like, oh, probably about 100 new clients a year. I'm like, so why are we trying to build messaging for everyone? Now, if you're in a business that like you need to serve millions for your business model to work or lots and lots and lots and lots, then sure, that's maybe a different conversation. But I'm guessing the majority of you on this call don't need hundreds of thousands or millions of clients, customers for your model, for your business to be really, really successful and profitable.
I don't know
actually, I'd just be
YouTubers on the call today who need 19 million views.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that might be a different story, right?
What everyone million users, I'll tell you that much.
Would everyone put in the chat though, like for their business model to really do what it wants? Would everyone? I'd just be curious. Would everyone put in the chat like the number of clients a year? I'm not talking about like, oh, the dream. That's awesome, but like, no, for my business to be really, really successful and be like provide everything I want for me and my family, I'd just be curious. Okay, Brian, 2. Who else?
It's more just because it's not a like profitability thing. It's a charitable thing. So.
Yeah. But see, Brian, dude, if you're looking for 2 good ones a year, do you know how specific you can be in your messaging and your targeting? You actually want your messaging and targeting to speak to way less people than it does.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's that's what we need, right? The process going. There's just one user request, user provides kind of thing. But inevitably, I'd like it to be a lot larger than like.
Yeah, sure.
But still.
Okay, so 2, 12, less than 50, 10, 5, 18, 4 to 10. That's like every entrepreneurship call I get on, it's usually these numbers. And yet, what are we trying to do with messaging? We're trying to build really broad, big messaging to serve everyone. And we need like 18 good clients a year, or we need 4 to 10 good clients a year. Your messaging in a business that requires 50 or less clients a year should repel way more people than it attracts. Like I should have no question. I should, if I listen to you speak or get on your website, I should have no question exactly who you serve and like what you're about. Hallie says 100 patients, but I'm looking for one good partnership for developing my business. So Hallie, what kind of doctor are you, practitioner?
Thanks for asking. So Taylor and I were talking earlier. I'm a rehab doctor specializing in hands-on healing. Obviously, touch is what we all crave. So talk about pain. How many of all of us wish that we could reach out and touch someone, let alone be touched, right?
Totally.
So talk about a crucial pain to deliver on. I've been coming up, and I was just an hour before this on a call with the CEO and some other people from a VR haptics company. I've come up with some technologies that would be crucial for being able to bring together touch, tech, and telemedicine in a way that I think I can really transform the entire landscape of what all of us feel pain and challenge to meet.
Yeah. And and the reason I asked about, because we've served a lot of alternative holistic healthcare practitioners, but it's like in your business, like 100 patients, but one good partnership. Like one good partnership could create that. How many of you rely on strategic partnerships or centers of influence for part of your business? You would not believe the number of clients over the years that we've helped that have said, after they go through this process, they're like, this process is really awesome, and it's discouraging because after going through this process, I've realized that about 50% or 75% of the people I've been trying to build strategic relationships with over the years, I'm now realizing they don't even have my target market. So it's like, I've been out fostering this relationship, trying to get like nurturing this relationship to get in front of all their community, ultimately to realize like, now that I'm clear on my message, that's not even my community. And it's okay. But this even begs the question of like, you have no business spending time with a strategic partner or center of influence or referral partner that doesn't serve your dream market already. So it's even like the message you take to them, and you don't need, again, 15 strategic partners. Every business that I see on here, from the number of clients and patients you want, could be solved with 1, maybe 2 referral partners. But are we clear enough on our message and who we serve to know exactly what our 1 or 2 referral partners look like? And so, again, all of this I speak from experience of having wasted lots of time myself with people that were never going to refer me who I wanted because I didn't even know who I wanted.
Chris, that's awesome. I love that. I would be interested, just with the time that we have, for you to jump into, like you mentioned John, because he gave his highlight at the beginning, or jump into one of the members here and just kind of ask them the questions that you've asked me and that you've asked Garrett, just to go through maybe some additional Q&A, because we'll wrap up here around 11:45 or 11:50, and I just want to make sure we get some Q&A as well as discussion with you, but having a case study with you again may be helpful.
Okay, that sounds good. So here's the first thing. So sometimes people say, oh, Chris, this sounds good. Like, where do I start? Right? This idea of like really identifying my message first and then getting really clear on like who I serve with it, right? If I'm going to kind of put the message before the market. Ryan Wall, you game to?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, Ryan, what business are you in?
Commercial insurance.
Oh, perfect. A boring, traditional, commoditized, service-based business. My favorite, because it's in those businesses you can stand out, but most people don't, because most people just talk about the same thing everyone else does, right? So what I see, Ryan, is you have an opportunity to really elevate like, oh yeah, like commercial insurance is what I do, but it's not like what it's really about for me, right? It's not about like the thing I really feel called to do, maybe. So what do you want to, so the first question we would ask you in our process is, what do you want to be known for? And I know that's like a confronting question. It's not like you're casual, like, hey, Ryan, nice to meet you. What do you want to be known for, man?
Yeah, I mean, I want to be known as like an outsourced risk manager, a partner with a company, right? I want to gain their trust.
Okay. So I would say, Ryan, that's awesome. And that's the obvious though, right? Like if I sell commercial insurance, I want to be really, really good at like helping them outsource the risk to me. And the reason I didn't preface it with anything is I'm always curious what people initially say. And most of us would say, like me, what do you want to be known for? Helping people develop really effective messaging. Well, it's like, yeah, but that's kind of like, you're already going to do that because you're paid for that. What does it really mean to you though? Like when you help someone outsource their risk to you and you're their risk management partner, like what is that about for you?
Yeah, I mean, good question. Really, I mean, I want them to come to me when they've got questions, either whether it's contractually, something that's keeping them up at night, or something has happened and they just curious, hey, does this fall into line? I mean, really just kind of being there for them with, a sounding board, if nothing else.
Okay. And what do you see as the outcome of your work? Like when you are that risk partner for them and they can rely on you for things to keep them up at night, like you're so much more than just a guy selling commercial insurance, right? What's the outcome for them in their life and their business of your work?
For them, I mean, for them, they feel better, right? Like there's a little bit of peace of mind. Like they can go to sleep at night. They've got an answer to their question. They can go back and report to their CEO or CFO and say, hey, here's the facts. Here's where we're at. This is what we need to move forward with, whether it's a decision or getting something right that's gone wrong. It's answers.
And who's your client? So if they're going back to their CEO, yours is not usually the business owner?
We're usually either the business owner, it just depends on the size of the company. I mean, we go from public down to small startups. And typically it's the CFO. Sometimes it's a risk officer. Sometimes it's an owner.
Okay. Who do you feel, I'm curious with that, like that range. If you had to make a decision today and like, dude, we're picking one market, who do you feel most called to serve? I'm just curious, who is it?
The CFO. Yep. Working with CFOs on the financial decisions is probably the biggest, who we talk to the most.
And is that what you feel most called to? Like, is that what you enjoy the most?
Yeah, probably.
So here's what's interesting. So these kind of questions go hand in hand, right? So like, what if I asked you again and I was like, hey, Ryan, what do you want to be known for? I want to be known as the greatest risk partner in the world for CFOs of mid-sized companies.
Yeah.
Like just as like, but you see the power of like the specificity of like, oh, I know who to send Ryan to. It's just like, it's that like declarative, like, and then you know if you're one of those or if you're not. Right? And then it's like, and then that same question, like, hey, what's the true outcome of your work? Well, it's the true outcome of my work is like, I allow CFOs of mid-sized companies to literally like outsource 99% of their risk, but most importantly, the stress associated with it to me, to free them up to focus on the things that they have like real fun with in the business and that really drive the business forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. And like, we usually don't use language like that though. Like if we were talking with a prospective client, right? Or like a CEO, but it's like this idea of, and then there's this brand identity statement that we use. Cause one of the things that I think is a risk is sometimes as entrepreneurs, we take on what we do as who we are. So someone might say, hey, Ryan, what do you do? It's like, well, I'm a commercial real estate, or I'm a commercial insurance broker, as though that's who you are. And I would say like, no, that's what you do. Like commercial insurance is what you do, but it's not who you are.
Right.
And so to help people separate that, we created this statement called the brand identity statement. And the brand identity statement is this little formula that says blank is what I do, blank is who I am. And by putting those two statements together, they kind of juxtapose each other and like make each other stronger, right? So, so like, for example, a brand identity statement for you could be like, taking over the risk for CFOs or mid-sized companies is what I do, but freeing them up to focus on what's most important to them in their life and in their business is who I am. But see, it's like that who I am piece is like important for all of you guys to, when I say guys, men and women for all in this call, like, yeah, what is this about for me? Yeah, yes, there's this thing that's obvious. That's what I do, right? Like if I'm Ryan, I help you like, I put really amazing commercial insurance policies in place that allow you to not have to worry as much about risk and as much about stress. but there's an and to that. There's a so that, right? And what I'm finding is that most times we don't get to the so that. We just kind of get to the obvious thing at hand, which is like, yeah, I do commercial insurance and I'm amazing at it. That's awesome. But it's like, what is it about for you? So Ryan, why, of all the things you could have went into, why commercial insurance and why this thing about risk? Like, why does that matter to you with your background and like where you come from?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just been interesting, right? It's been something that it wasn't anything on my radar coming out of school. It kind of morphed, and I don't want to say I fell into it, but that's kind of where my priorities were. I enjoy working with business owners, CFOs. Insurance wasn't necessarily the first thought, but I enjoy working with those decision makers and helping them, be safe, basically financially. And
hey, why is that important? Like, is there like anything in your past? Like, was your family always safe financially? Did you see like risk as a kid growing up or not, or the opposite of like what you help people with now, or like?
No, not necessarily. I mean, pretty middle-class family growing up. Education-wise, education was always pretty important to me. Never wanted to be someone to tell somebody what to do with their money, right? Like, I never wanted to be that advisor role that says, invest here or invest there, but rather but enjoy finance. And if it's something that I can do to help people save money or put them in a position that they avoid loss, then yeah, that makes a little bit more sense to me as far as on the preparation side.
And one of the things that's really interesting that like I would encourage all of you to look at, because most of us actually feel that way. My experience is hundreds of entrepreneurs have come and gone through our coaching, and most of them are like, I don't know that there is any really reason like your story is not that uncommon, Ryan. It's like, I kind of do this and I like it. But if most of you look, there's something though that had you feel at some point in time called to this. Not just like, hey, it's a good career, I could make money at it, I like it. And I think part of the job for all of us is like, why do I feel called to this? Like, what is the calling about? Because yeah, like the policy is great, like selling them insurance and helping them, like avoid risk and stress. But like this thing about wanting them to feel safe financially, to me is like really powerful. And I don't know if you've ever even used that language, right? Like with the clients, like, look, my number one priority is to make sure that you feel safe as possible financially.
Yeah.
And even like, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, no, and I'm kind of reflecting as you're talking. Thank you for taking me as your case study today. But, as you're saying that about being safe and some of those things, like it's usually when I follow up with them, right? When I'm writing them a thank you note and I'm saying, hey, thank you for your business. And this is what I'm going to do for you. I need, as I'm reflecting, it's like, no, I need to be doing that in the front, right? Instead of on the back with the thank you note. So yeah, no, I think that's great.
Yeah.
Ryan,
it's like
you made me feel safe today because you were the one that Chris picked. So then when he picked you, I felt safe.
But I think sometimes it's just like, we just don't come out and tell people what it's really about for us, right? We keep it kind of surface level. And it's just like Ryan, I even think there'd be a lot of benefit in you saying like, talking to a CFO and saying like, hey, and you want to know, like, really, like, I could kind of care less about your commercial insurance policy. Meaning like, I'm going to make sure you have the very best one and it's going to be amazing and it's going to protect you from stress and risk. But like, that is not what it's about for me. Like, you can go get a good commercial insurance policy from anyone, really. Like you go talk to any commercial insurance broker in our state, they're probably going to do a really good job for you. What it's about for me is it's about making sure that you're safe financially. What it's about for me is freeing you up to focus on the things that you love to do the most and you enjoy doing the most. What it's about for me is that you and I have a really strong partnership.
Yeah.
Like, he's just like this cosmetic dentist that we've just helped, and he's just crushing in his practice. And he tells everyone of his patients now in a prospective consultation, hey, by the way, it's not about the teeth for me. And they kind of look at him like, well, dude, that's what I'm like hiring you, like paying you $8,000 to $10,000 for a new smile, cosmetic smile. It's like, it's not about the teeth, though. It's about the confidence you're going to have and the things you're going to go do in your life because of that confidence. So what it's really about for me is a confidence. So creating beautiful smiles is what I do, but building people's confidence is who I am. Right? Like mitigating risk through commercial insurance is what I do. Helping people feel safe is who I am.
That's awesome. So timing wise, does anybody have like one or two questions that they want to put Chris on the hot seat with? I know you do.
Yeah, fire away.
Hey, this is Jeff Holman.
What's up,
I've
Jeff?
got a question. So So I've been way into story brand stuff right now, which is probably very aligned with the stuff you do. Tell me what's the one thing that you do that story brand is missing, or what's the thing above and beyond story brand
Yeah,
that you add?
I love that question because we actually have a lot of people. I would say, Jeff, on it, it's interesting. Like I would say we're starting to average 1 or 2 people a month in our group coaching program who've been through story brand and that are coming to work with us. I can honestly say we've never had one person say anything bad about story brand. Everyone's always said how useful the framework is and how useful the method is.
Sure.
I think where we're different though is we're smaller and we go much deeper. Whereas story brand is going to really help you see, like they're going to share with you a story framework. They're going to talk to you about the importance of story, and they're going to really focus a lot on stories that relates to messaging, right? Whereas ours goes from our clients' feedback is we go much deeper on actually putting all of it together and then actually teaching them how to use it in sales conversations, in presentations, like every day. Now we would have a much more scalable business if we followed the story brand model, which is if I just picked one aspect of story, built a framework around it and just taught it to the masses and certified people in it, I'd probably make a lot more money and it would actually be more sustainable. It's not what I enjoy doing the most. So what I enjoy doing the most is not crafting the message in the story. I enjoy teaching people how to go use it, because that's been my entire life. I've been the head of business development at a commercial real estate brokerage, and then I was the head of business development at a financial advisory firm, and I crushed it. Like I brought in more business than anyone ever in the history of those firms because I knew how to tell the story and I knew how to influence with it. And so that's what I love. I love helping you. Like I would love to help you create the story, Jeff, but that's just the beginning. Then we would teach you like, all right, here's how we're going to use this to like influence, get referrals, make sales, like close business.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
Yeah. But I've heard great things like about story brand for sure.
Cool. Time for one more question. Otherwise we're actually over time, but I'll open it up for one more question if anybody's got it. So unmute yourself and ask away. Okay. Awesome. Chris.
I shared my email in here, Taylor. A couple people private messaged me and just asked about it. So if you guys want to connect and, ask any questions or reach out if I can do anything. Sorry, I went over a little bit, but appreciate you guys having me on.
No worries. Thanks so much. That was awesome. I appreciate your time.
Okay. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,
We'll see
Chris.
everybody next week.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Taylor.